Welcome to What You Need to Grow, the podcast where entrepreneurs discover the inspiration and perspective shifts that fuel both personal and business growth. Each week, certified professional coach Jennie Bellinger brings you powerful conversations with thought leaders, subject matter experts, and innovative company leaders who share their stories of growth and the tools that made it possible. From fresh insights that expand your vision to resources you can explore on your own journey, every episode is designed to help you grow your knowledge, grow your vision, and grow your business. Now, here's your host, Jennie Bellinger.
Welcome to another episode of What You Need to Grow. I'm your host, Jennie Bellinger, and I have with me today Courtney Epps. Now, Courtney is an enrolled agent, a tax strategist, international speaker, a best-selling author like multiple times, and founder of Outside the Box Tax and Tax Rebels. Over the past number of years, she's helped start up everything from startups up to $100 million companies in all 50 states turn complex tax rules into freedom building strategy. Now y'all know why I had her on, right? And so her mission is to actually help entrepreneurs keep more, earn more, and give more so that they can live fuller and impact deeper. Get ready to dive into mindset, methods, and legal moves, although I don't know if we're going to give any tax strategy today, but we will make sure that you have a better understanding of how taxes work for you with Courtney. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I absolutely had to invite you to be on this show after the conversation we had on my other podcast. And it was so helpful for network marketers to hear that and to know what's possible for them, right? Because you've been speaking to home-based businesses, which is a lot of entrepreneurs, start out of their home. They start out of their garage, their basement, their extra bedroom, their living room, their dining room, right? Helping them to, be more strategic with their taxes so that they can save more, keep more, and be able to then give more and grow more. So how did you get into the world of taxes?
So honestly, I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. That's what my whole entire life, from the time I was 5 until I actually a couple months before I graduated from high school, that was the route that I was on. I started college early at 16, and I'm like, I'm going to be, that's what I'm going to be. And it was actually the highest paying career as a W-2 employee, right? So that's, when you're in school, it's like, why not shoot for the highest paying thing?
Yeah.
And so that's what 2 months before I decided to go off to College of Charleston, I made a decision that I was going to stay at home. My first husband told me he could not be with me if I decided to go off to college. And so I decided not to. So that didn't work out. It took about 7 years, but had 3 kids with him. And so from there, when I went to Coastal Carolina University, that was the closest school that I could get to. And the highest paying thing that I could do there was an accountant. And I was like, okay, well, that's what I'll be. And I actually worked for an accounting firm while I was in college and right after college. And on my first evaluation, they told me that it would not be good for my career to have another child. And I was 7.5 months pregnant. And I had a 9.5-month-old. And so I told them in the middle of tax season that it was not best for me to continue working here. I think I quit on February 27th. And I swore I was never going to be an accountant again. I was never going to do taxes again. And that lasted another tax season. And so when it came time for me to do my own tax return, I didn't know how to use those softwares. And I'm like, I'm going to need to buy professional software. And then I might as well do taxes for people. And it kind of led to that. And that grew into, now we have a, $4.5 million practice. We've got 2,600 tax returns that we've prepared this year so far. So kind of crazy. That was 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, I know it's approaching the 2-decade mark, because last time we talked, you were pretty close to it then too. So
yeah.
I mean, that's a long time to be doing that kind of work. So it sounds like, and especially from your intro, the fact that you've worked with everyone from startups all the way through like $100 million companies, you've got quite a breadth of experience to be able to work with a variety of people in the world of taxes and especially
Yes.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and what, for me, the things that I learned in college did not help at all. Coming out of college and working for someone like most CPAs, they are scared to death to save people money in taxes. Like they're literally taught in college, like you're more likely to be audited if you have a home-based business or if you take certain deductions on travel and auto. And that's just not true. Those are complete myths. And I've learned that over the last, 20, I guess it's been 25 years since I've been doing taxes because I started my first job in accounting was 18 years old.
Okay.
And so the other thing that I learned is that when you go to continuing education classes, they try to scare you into believing that, hey, you don't want to do this. You don't want to be overly aggressive with your client. And if you do, they can get audited and you can lose your rights to file a tax return. So I just learned through me, like as I started making more and more money, I'm like, there's got to be better ways to keep more of my money. And obviously, I know everything that I do is pretty much tax deductible because I'm always attempting to earn income. And there's a rule called Section 162A that says if you are attempting to earn income today or in the future and it's reasonable and ordinary in your business, then it's tax deductible. So I live by that as wholeheartedly as possible. I'm always trying to make money, right? So, and if I am, I'm always getting tax deductions.
I love that idea because I'm very much the same. Like I will literally be sitting there, for those of you who are listening and haven't ever actually like seen me, I have purple hair, pinkish purple hair, right? And I will literally be sitting talking to my stylist as she's doing my hair and
Yes.
talking about how, okay, now that it's purple, now I can go home and it's freshly purple so I can do all of my videos.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, I hadn't even considered like that could be something that,
Correct.
we're talking business and how this is.
And it's part of your brand as well.
Yes,
So
it is.
that becomes if that is part of your brand, then it's tax deductible. Especially like, hiring your kids. Like one of the things that we're actually doing for my 6.5-month-old is I'm creating an Ask Courtney AI bot, and she's going to be the actual face of it. And it's going to be my voice. And so she's going to be teaching you tax strategy. And she's a 7 months. She'll be 7 months old next month. So I can use her image and likeness. And she's also a model for OTB Tax. So that's one of the ways you can hire your kids and pay them.
All right, duly noted. Because I got two teenagers and
That's right.
let's figure that stuff out. That'd be
Yes.
great. I love that. So, what are some of the mistakes that you see either people who are new in business making on their taxes where they could be saving more?
The biggest one is that they're not structured properly. So most accountants will tell people like you only need an LLC. You don't need to treat that LLC as an S corporation for tax purposes. And for those of you that know what an LLC is, it's just a limited liability company. And so when you put that in place, one, I think the minute you become a business owner, if you're legitimate, you should have an LLC to limit your liability. But the benefit of that, as far as taxes go, is that when you start actually making money, then you can treat that LLC as an S corporation for tax purposes. And that allows you to bypass 80% of your self employment taxes. So I just actually 30 minutes ago got off the phone with a client that paid $27,000 in self-employment taxes last year. He tried to do his own tax return. And I mean, granted, I've seen worse for people who actually paid for their tax return. So, but we are going to go back and amend his tax return back to 2024, treat his LLC as an S corporation, pull back the $27,000 that he overpaid in self-employment taxes, get that back for him and push that to 2025. I'm going to take his tax bill from 37,000. There's two changes, hiring his kids and the LLC tree as an S corp. We're going to take his bill from 37 to 5 a year. So that's one way. Structure is a huge deal. When someone is structured properly, when they do have an S corp election, like I have a client this week that I'm going back and amending his taxes. His accountant told him he needed to pay himself $115,000 a year. He had a $95,000 loss on his business. Like, so I'm like, essentially you're paying $95,000 towards self-employment taxes, which is 15 grand. You're paying 15 grand in taxes on money you did not make. And he's like, well, that doesn't make sense. So I'm like, we're going to go back and get all that money back that you overpaid in payroll. We're going to amend the payroll. We're going to amend the corporate and the personal tax return. And then you get something called the QBI deduction. So the QBI deduction says you don't have to pay taxes on 20% of your net income from a business. And because of that loss, right, because of his paycheck, he overpaid himself in paycheck. He defeated the whole purpose of having the S Corp. And he also didn't get to write off 20% of his net income because he didn't have a net income. So when we amend the payroll, it also increases the net income, and then you don't have to pay tax on 20% of that when it flows to the personal tax return. So that's 2. Then 3 is just missing expenses. I mean, it's really, people just don't understand how valuable it is to have a bookkeeper that actually understands your business and is willing to actually take advantage of the tax deductions that you're entitled to take. And the most I've ever gone back on someone for that is $110,000 a year. That their bookkeeper was literally didn't understand what all they could write off. And that was in the home-based business space, which granted, there are tons of things you can take as a brick and mortar as well. But a lot of times when you have a bookkeeper, someone who, or an accountant who's doing the bookkeeping, they just don't understand what's available and what can be written off because they've been W-2 employees their whole life, essentially. And so from there, they're not going to a coffee shop and meeting people. They're not traveling around the world and having conversations or going to continuing education events. They're typically doing that in their backyard, right? So they don't understand the expenses. And because of that, they're putting them to shareholder distributions. You think they're tracking them, which they are, but they're just putting them on your balance sheet as an equity item, and you're not getting any benefit from that. So those are the 3 things.
Oh my gosh. And this also makes me really glad that I'm not the one who's doing my taxes.
Yes.
That's a lot to retain and remember.
It just gets so much bigger from there.
Right.
Yeah, and a lot.
I mean, and each year there's a lot of changes that happen in the tax code, which is why it can be so difficult for some people to be a part of that, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the changes are typically small, like tax brackets change. A lot of the software will actually, adjust for all the changes. It's just more along the lines of understanding code and what all you can write off. Like you can hire your kids. You can write off your swimming pool because you hired your kids. You can write off a golf course, a tennis court, an exercise facility. You can do continuing education with them. There's so many things that most people just don't think about. Like me, when I spend money, it's like, how can I force this to be a tax deduction? I'm not spending money unless it's tax deductible, unless it's my house, right? That's pretty much it. Like that's my threshold. And I write off my house at $15,000 a day because of the Augusta rule, because I have people come over 14 days a year for masterminds and retreats and things like that. So we come here and hang out. That's a $15,000 a day tax deduction.
Nice. Oh my gosh. That's so freaking smart. I love that. Now, how is it that you went from doing, a few people's taxes to now doing 2,600 tax returns? What was that business growth like? And I mean, was that over the course of 20-ish years that it went from a few people to this, or was this a massive growth at some point?
So I had after I worked for this CPA firm, me and my mom actually started a jewelry store. And so we owned that for like 3.5 years. I owned a marketing company. I then went to work for Aflac. After that, I became the #1 sales rep in the state out of 5,000 reps. Then I left there, went to work for RBC Liberty Life Insurance Company, became the rookie of the year and 3rd in the country with that company in about 7 months. And then I started a PNC agency. And so that PNC agency, I had that for 3.5 years, built that up to, which for those of you that don't know, PNC is property and casualty. So like auto, home, things like that. And so I built that up to 3,500 clients by the time from 25 to 29. And I was short in cash flow about $2,000 a month. And I sold it. And the guy I sold it to stopped paying me. And I lost everything. I was $250,000 in debt in 2011. And I actually had a 5-year non-compete for accounting and insurance. And it was outside of tax season when it all happened. So didn't know how to build a tax practice January through April. And I had a tax practice inside that firm. So every time I tried to get a job, he would threaten to sue the owner of the company. I lived in a small town. Everybody knew who I was in that space. So I actually started a screen printing company and a vinyl sign and banner company. And I built that while I was building up my tax practice. And then I got really sick. It was so funny. I was building my tax practice, got sick in the month of January, lost all my clients again, had to build that back up. And so I actually got involved in network marketing and I loved it. And so my goal is that I would do tax returns for people in the network marketing space that were in my downline and in my company. And that would get me through. And I would just do that January through April. And then April through December, I'd go back to doing taxes or back to doing network marketing, which is what I loved. And so when I did that, I'm like, every year I'd tell them, like, I'm not going to be doing taxes next year. I'm going to be doing network marketing full time, right? Because I hate taxes. I mean, who loves taxes? Who wakes up every day and they're like, yes, I just want to be an accountant, but so anyway, I fast forward, that got me to 2017, June 30th of 2017. I showed up for $50 to a Tony Robbins event, and that transformed my entire life because I realized at that point I was massively undervaluing myself. So I was getting the wrong type of clients, and because they weren't able to pay me what I was worth, it was causing me to have massive financial issues. Then I had massive limiting beliefs because I'd sold a business, because I made one wrong decision and sold my business. And what I thought I was going to be able to give that and provide that to my children, it really did a number on me. And then I was massively self-sabotaging myself. So, every time I would get a client, I would end up not doing work just to get them to not pay me. And so I'm like, I have to fix this problem. And then the last thing was I realized you could be happy or sad or miserable or depressed or whatever, because he played some happy music and then you're happy, and then you listen to some sad music and then you're sad, and you smile at somebody and you're happy. And I'm like, this is a game. Like, this is crazy. Like, I really do get to choose. And so I was super depressed and had been for 6 weeks, did nothing. Like, I had no income. I told my husband for the first time ever, you need to go get a job. Like, I'm going to stay here with our 6 kids and you're going to need to figure that out. And so I just shut down. And after that event, the next day I got $7,500 a month in CFO clients. So I started doing fractional CFO work. By a year from that moment, I was doing $35,000 a month in CFO clients. And I went to my first ever actual real business mastery event with Tony Robbins. And I put a lot of faith and trust and effort into being a platinum partner and going to every single event because I knew the continuing education was super important. And so we did, I would say 2017, I think ended up doing 150,000 between July and December. I did zero income the year before in that same time frame as far as accounting goes. And then the next year we did 350, the next year we did 897. Then I did 2.6 million in 2020, did 3.4 million in 2021. And then we dropped because I hired a CEO that did not understand the world of accounting. And we dropped to like 3.2, then 2.9. Then I took back over in 2024 and we went up to 3.7. And this year we'll do 4.5. So yes, massive growth, really, really quickly, super overwhelming. Obviously I had to stop 2 years ago and just put the systems in place to make sure that our staff was prepared, that we built the foundation. We actually just leased another building today because I can't find one to buy right now that's close to our facility. And so we're doubling the practice and getting prepared to next year. We plan to be a $10 million company.
That's amazing. I mean, and the fact that there was such an overnight change from going to your personal growth event, right? Because Tony Robbins doesn't teach taxes. Tony Robbins doesn't, that's not his thing. So I love that because this whole podcast is all about the intersection of personal growth and business growth. And to see that you went to a personal growth event and had that massive shift. And did you say like overnight
Yeah. So what happened is like 3 days before this guy begged me to come to this group called the agency board. And there was like 8 different business owners in there. And we're actually working on building that out through Tax Rebels, but it's almost like a board. You have a board and you all come together once a month and you bring your issues and your problems and your P&L and balance sheet, and you sit together and you help each other grow the business. And so he begged me to come to that. And I'm like, I don't want to go. And I'm not even looking for clients. And so I went. And when somebody, I knew I needed income, but my brain was like, nope, not doing this. Like we were on the verge of being homeless. Like, I mean, it was really bad. But I was in my brain, like, I cannot do this. And so I went to that event. I sat in the room. And then this one girl, she was like, I need a virtual CFO. And so I opened up the little packet and I was like, what is a virtual CFO? And I read out all the things that she needed. And I was like, man, I can do that. I've ran things into dirt. I've ran businesses in the dirt. I've lost everything I own twice. Like I can show people how to make money. I can show people how to lose money or not lose money. Right. I can
Right.
all the things. And so when it came time to introduce me, I just said, I'm a fractional CFO. And then they asked me all kinds of questions. Everybody in the room were asking questions. I answered a ton of questions and helped them. And at the end, there was 3 people that came up to me and said, hey, can you please schedule time with me to discuss being a fractional CFO? And I was like, sure. So I scheduled it on Friday, knowing that I was going to this event on Wednesday and Thursday. And I didn't even know what I was going to charge. I didn't even know what to list in the contract, like nothing. But I didn't really care at this point. It was like either I get them or I don't. I had that kind of that mindset. So I just threw out, I'll charge you $2,500 a month and I'll do these 10 things. And they all took it, everyone. And so that, it's crazy, but it's just that I shifted. Like I know my worth. I know that I'm really good at what I do. And so I threw that number out and they all took it. And I was like, man, maybe I should charge more.
If it was that easy.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, no, and that makes a lot of sense because there's understand, going through that shift, something like that can really also, I think, energetically impact who's attracted to you, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
had you met those people before you had the shift,
Yep. Yeah.
you wouldn't have made the money,
Well,
right?
and the thing, I met them on a Tuesday. I went on Wednesday. So I went the next day. So I just like, I mean, I automatically just answer a ton of questions. Like if you have a question about divorce or bankruptcy or just about anything under the sun, I'm going to
Mhm.
be able to help you in that process. And then I ended up growing so quickly with the CFO stuff that I finally had to let that all go. So
Mm.
it was either continue on the path and me being focused on being an hourly rate person and not being able to. I had a really hard time trying to train people how to be a good CFO because I think
Yeah.
you have to have built a company. I think you have had to have lost and understand all those aspects, or maybe work for somebody for 20 years and then you're almost impossible as far as rate of pay. And so I decided that I wanted to help millions of people instead of helping tens or dozens of people. And so I shifted in 2019, and actually 2018 I shifted and stopped doing CFO services altogether.
Mm, mm. So, what have you continued to do since that Tony Robbins event for your personal growth? Have you continued with other events or
Oh
other things
yeah.
like that?
I spent $250,000 this year on just one mastermind that I've been a part of. And I've learned things like Rob structures, how to build companies inside of a self-directed IRA that is a Roth, so you don't have to pay taxes on the money. So you pay a little bit of corporate taxes on it, move that over into a Roth, invest that into real estate or whatever else you want to. Never pay taxes on the money. Pull it out tax free, 59 and a half. So we built Tax Rebels, actually our education platform and our social media platform inside of that. And so I've just constantly been focused on learning and, investing in real estate syndicates and natural gas. And so a lot of the stuff that I've been focused on now is the wealth strategy so that I can come back and teach all of that to our clients and our tax rebels.
Oh, so smart. So tell, so you have the out of the box tax
Yep.
company, and that's the one that you are aiming to take to $10 million next year.
Correct. Yes.
And by the way, for those who are listening, this is being recorded in 2025.
Right.
So, you know, you've also started this newer business called Tax Rebels. And when you and I had
Yes.
first met, that was like, it was coming, it was on
Yes.
its way,
Yes.
and you have since launched this company, this thing, Tax Rebels. So what is Tax Rebels?
So it's essentially my education. So one of the things that I have learned is that it is getting harder for me every single day to continue to do tax strategy sessions. And in order to continue to grow and to help more people, I've got to step back out and allow somebody else to step in and do tax strategy sessions, allow somebody else to run the company so that I can focus on speaking. And so Tax Rebels is all of my education. So there's weekly Q&As that you can actually connect with me every Thursday. There are live events that we're going to have that are travelcations. They're actually, and we're going to call them Rebel Retreats as well. So we can go on vacation together, hang out, and have a good time, add some continuing education into it. So it forces it to be 100% tax deductible. It's going to lead to these masterminds that we want to do to help people grow their business, but then also teach them the tax and the wealth strategies of the 1%. So, and that's, I think, is the biggest thing. It's not just about tax. It's like when we do free up money, where do we put it? Right. And how do we create passive income? So I'm on a goal right now that in the next 6 to 7 years that I will have $1 million a year passive, and all the money that I'm making will be tax free. And so, obviously that's a strategy that cannot be taught in 30 minutes, right? So it's more of meeting you where you are. So if I have a client that comes to me and they just started, there's a lot of different things that they need to do as opposed to somebody who's making $50 million a year.
Yeah.
There's and their investment strategies are two totally different things. So we've created Tax Rebels for the education platform. We've got OTB Tax to do all the work. And then from there, we're actually creating OTB Wealth, and I will have that finalized by the end of the month. And that's all the wealth strategies. Like that's literally the high level tax strategies that you need to learn that we will actually be able to funnel and make sure that that's all taken care of for you.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so much going on there. And I think that there's probably a lot of people, entrepreneurs who are listening to this going, man, I love this idea. So how is it that they can reach out to you if they would like to learn more about Tax Rebels or outside the box tax, if they would
Yeah.
like someone who's maybe a little more aggressive with their tax saving strategies?
So there's two ways. Obviously, they can go to taxrebels.com. You can sign up for that. It is literally $49 a month. Like I had a conversation, or I went through a presentation last night on a guy that teaches taxes, and same thing that we teach in Tax Rebels and the tax returns. He charges $50,000 a year for. I'm doing it for $49 a month and $4.99 a year. And then right now there's a lifetime membership until the end of the year for $1,500. And so I'm like, man, we should really think that. But my goal is to help small to medium-sized business owners learn the same information that the $50 to $100 million companies have. And so I want to help people get to that place instead of saying, hey, unless you can make $50,000 a year or pay me $50,000 a year, you can't get my secrets. So I got really sick of the whole $50,000 paywalls, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to help people get the information so that they can get to a point where they want to be in that room. They want to be in the high level. And the masterminds that we're going to be doing, it's like literally the portion of it's going into a passive fund so that they can make passive income and we can grow their business at the same time. It's not just talking to them, right? And then we can go on vacation at the same time and have a good time and be able to write it all off. But so Tax Rebels, you can join Tax Rebels for $49. And then from there, you can book a $49 tax strategy session because that's what the tax strategy sessions are there. Or you can go to OTB Tax and you can pay $99 for a tax strategy session. So you can do either one. Like you should definitely do one or the other, but to me, it makes sense to join Tax Rebels and get all the content, the vault, and everything that's there, and be in a group of like-minded individuals who are focused on doing nothing but building their business, building their legacy, and creating true wealth and saving money in taxes instead of all the nonsense that's going on in the other platforms.
I love that. So, of course, if you're listening to this on a podcast app, or maybe you're checking it out on YouTube, make sure you look under the episode because the link to be able to connect with taxrebels.com is right there. We'll make sure that we have that so that way you know you're going to the right place, and that you are connecting directly with Courtney's company to be able to get the information that Courtney has been building for 20 plus years now. So, Courtney, thank you again for being here. It's always so enlightening for me to have this type of conversation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for having me. I enjoy
Oh,
it every single time. Our conversations are amazing.
thank you so much. And of course, What You Need to Grow community. Make sure you join us in the Facebook community, What You Need to Grow podcast community. It is on the grow. I mean, as Courtney and I are recording this right now, the podcast has not even officially launched. And the last time I checked, we already had 160 people in the community. So let's keep growing the community, growing each other. And then if tax strategy is something you need help with, make sure you check out taxrebels.com and connect with Courtney there. So, and What You Need to Grow community, you know you need to stay tuned because you never know what you will need to grow.
Thank you for listening to What You Need to Grow. Be sure to follow the show on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to the YouTube channel so you don't miss a single episode. Want updates straight to your inbox? Sign up at whatyouneedtogrow.com and you'll get notified each time a new episode goes live. Here's to your growth. This has been What You Need to Grow with Jennie Bellinger.